This conference will now be recorded.
All right. Good afternoon, and today we are doing the facility plan of 2019 with NAT01 School District, and we'll start by doing our introductions.
So I'm Brandon Finney, but my role with the agency, State Construction Department, is primarily identifying capital construction needs through this process, and then working with the districts and the project managers so we can identify budgets to take to the legislature.
Okay. Michael Jennings, Executive Director of Human Resources and District Services, Executive Director over Facilities Maintenance, and then the Business Office for Natrona County School District.
Amy Aguilar, Administrative Specialist for Maintenance and Facilities.
Doug Tennyson, Facilities Construction Manager.
Paul Severson. My technical title is Design and Construction Administrator, but when I'm in your county, I'm also your Regional Project Manager. I'll correct that, Special Project Manager. There's two special districts in the state, yourself and Campbell, and I'm Project Manager of both of those.
Okay. Amber Leach, and I'm the Policy Planning Coordinator as of this week. And with that being said, my role during this process is working with the districts on the documentation for today's facility plan as we go through it. And I do thank you guys for all the hard work ahead of time. I know that this is a good process for us to always look at our information and make sure it's up to date. And you'd be surprised how much we find and we start uncovering and fixing.
Yeah, I thought we were so accurate and close, and every year we find things at districts that we didn't know, that they didn't know.
Yep.
So this is an important part of the process.
This is the part I'm shocked on, is what pieces of land districts don't even know they own or sold or so.
So what we have here is an illustration of just looking at your properties, and I know this is kind of a higher realm, and you'll have to apologize. I'm on a different computer, so we'll do the best we can. And as you see, this just kind of gives a perspective looking at your properties across the district.
In Casper.
In Casper. Now there are some other properties down below that we did take snapshots from Google Earth. And as you well know, that it's very important to know the acreage behind the tracts and deeds, because we do communicate with WDE, which does impact your block grant. In the past couple of years, my predecessor, Charlie Kaufman, had worked directly with not only the districts, but the GIS sites to validate a lot of the tracts and deeds. As we talked about just earlier, is we still are finding, this land belongs to us, doesn't belong to us, another fresh pair of eyes. And it's important for us to always update and reflect that on our AIM database so that we can get the right information to WDE for that, as well as our own for when it comes to your major maintenance payment.
Now, you still have a property near Casey, right?
Willow Creek, yes.
Yes. Willow Creek. Okay, because we don't have an image of that one in that grouping that we looked at there.
As you know, we do the best we can with our snapshots, and we include as many if we need to include that, because there is some thing going on this year. We could also add that. So with that being said, if you have any questions, I know that you have indicated here that you were correct on your tracts and deeds, and you've been providing some updated AIM update forms to us, and we've been able to capture that going forward.
Hey, ask one question.
Yes.
The elementary school is on there. You submitted that one.
I did.
Grant Elementary
Grant,
School.
Mills, is Grant.
Because those are both sold.
Mills is on there.
On this sheet.
Yeah.
So what we'll do is we'll indicate that we will follow up on that.
Great.
The thing that we are, I can tell you right now that Janet Garrison that received your guys' information with that AIM form, she's still in the process. She kind of bombarded us. So what we'll do is note that it is in process, and then you'll be able to see and reflect that.
It's not on that.
Right, because I caught it in this one.
Okay.
So our acreage is reflecting that now on our database. So we are good there. I know that she's still going through on some
Sent her
of,
quite a few
yeah.
requests, so she's probably.
She's a little behind that, but
So-
she is working
Just double
through it.
checking.
So under tasks, I put be sure that Grant and Mills are removed from AIM database.
And
Perfect.
special education, in case that's on there.
Okay.
SES.
Special education and Roosevelt High School, is that one gone off?
I don't see
Okay.
Roosevelt on
Roosevelt's
there.
not on there.
It's
Okay.
Grant and
Roosevelt.
Mills
What
are-
about North Casper? Did you guys
Oh,
conclude?
We aren't gonna close until middle of April.
Okay, so that one is still
It's
on,
still
okay.
So I'm not seeing Roosevelt High School on there. I'm not seeing Special Education Service. Yes, it is on there.
Yes, it is.
Special Education Service Center is also on there.
Yes, because I sent 3
Yeah,
requests.
Three.
those are the three that I saw that you said, yeah.
So we still have them reflecting.
Yeah, and she said she would get to it.
Yeah.
so.
And like I said, it's still that
She's
trying
got a
to
lot.
catch up. Yeah, she does have a lot.
So I need
And-
to add special education, Grant
Yes.
Mills.
And SESC.
And then hopefully next year when we do this, we'll also then take off North Casper, but that's fallen through once already.
Oh, okay.
So we had a buyer for it, and they had backed out. So we were retaining it, then we put it back on the market. And we have a buyer at this time, but we don't have a contract in place. We're getting,
Oh, you do not have a
no, we're in the
contract?
process of getting that contract written and getting a closing date, which we're, like
And
Brett
as
said.
soon as it is closed, I will send it.
Perfect. You're very well trained.
So,
Wish all our districts were on top of it, but it's hard because it's not always something that you do consistently. So that's what this process is about, is to really make sure that we're catching those that fall through the cracks and don't get followed up properly in the process.
so then on the one that you're selling, do we need to take it to the commission in May? Or has it already been?
North Casper's already been to the commission.
Oh.
Special edu, yeah,
They've
everything
all been.
everything has been to the commission.
Yeah.
We're all, okay.
Yeah.
So that we have that captured in the
Yep.
notes. Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. So as we realize our tracks are in, some of them are in process of being updated, we get into the land leases here and we note that there's this one land lease. And moving on into that, is there any other comments on land disposition, land acquisition? You related in your notes that was no plans to sell or purchase, but we have a correction that
Yeah,
the north
but
side
you're
is
in process on a few of them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, but at this time, we're working on the correct AIM update form. We'll probably update that a little bit and change that around this information right here saying that we're in process. As I go through here, you'll see that I did highlight that the property profile, you are good with what you have because you've indicated which properties that we need to update.
Yes, I actually went through that yesterday, and I sent Janet some more 705 forms for sheds, even though we don't get funding for that. I just wanted it to be
Right.
accurate.
So they're
Yeah.
added to the portfolio? and
Yes.
stuff, Yeah.
So Janet came in and she's like, I'm not gonna get them done in time for me to rerun this.
That's
So
okay.
we've captured as much as we could, and I reran the report prior to this meeting to capture that. And as
So did
you
you
see-
replace Deb?
Yes, in a
Is Deb
sense.
here?
She is still here. She's in the
Okay.
business office as working in accounts payable,
Okay,
but she still does the capital construction side.
gotcha.
So bear with me. I know this is quite small on the screen. We're used to being at home with a big screen. I don't want to make people sick, but I want to also allow you to see anything. And again, you indicated the AIM update forms with that. You did not have any indication that you had any acknowledgement forms going forward this year. Oh, hold on. Let me go back into building leases. I got ahead of myself.
Yep.
So provided here is our building leases. There was several building leases, I believe 3, if I recall correctly. You've got the adult, able,
Driver's ed.
Yep.
Red Creek land.
so right there we've got the drivers. And then down
Those are
below,
facilities that you guys lease. Or people lease from you.
Some interest, but we're not this time.
Yeah.
the next portion you're gonna see here is all of the enhancement, validate, or verification accuracy on this. And again, this does impact your major maintenance payment. And you indicated everything was correct here. Going forward, we've got the enhance acknowledgement form, and you are planning to submit a additional for the outdoor track enhancement.
Correct.
Okay. Do you want to explain what is that?
It just depends.
What it is.
Yeah, what it is. So
When we renovated the track, we added some additional facilities to support state track that were outside of the eligible for major maintenance.
So this is Kelly Walsh.
Kelly Walsh, right.
excellent. Okay. Okay. So my screen jumped very fast. The next portion we get into is district appropriations, updating the information.
Right.
And as we go through, the importance on this is that once we know that you have closed out a project, got to that point that you've met your warranties, your punch lists, etc., that you're ready to say the project is complete, that we can take the remaining funds that were unspent and revert them back to the state. A lot of times it's very important in these component projects specifically because it goes back into the bucket, and it can also help you if you're further down the list on the component list and others that could be down that list. So we go by state statute to evaluate them every year and find out where we stand. And indicated here, the bar none, revert on that one because you've completed the project. You've also indicated on 1103 the new pathways that you have, we can also close and revert.
Okay.
Then on 1104, which is the main building demo, we can also close and revert those funds that are
I have a
remaining.
quick question for you.
Okay.
How long do they stay on there for?
The
I'm just
capital
thinking-
construction.
Yeah, I'm just looking at that CY Junior High main demolition because Journey Elementary School's been open.
Yeah,
for
well,
a
it-
year.
Basically, we keep them during any warranty period that you've got, just in case something pops up. By statute, capital construction money never goes away unless we go through this formal process of
Gotcha.
closing a project. So in the past, we have had some situations where literally capital money can sit there for years, in some cases almost a decade.
Really?
But
Wow.
in recent years, the need for the state for more money, they're seeking dollars all the time so that they can fund new projects. So that has changed, and we're actually more aggressive due to requests from the legislature and their service office, get us the money back.
Sure.
So when the next session comes with the legislature, we know what we've got to work with.
Reallocate it.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Plus,
Also,
it's clean books.
Right.
They don't have projects done 5 years ago.
It just surprised me to see that one. I was like,
well, and also you'll see the same number as if you kind of consider it in my mind as a soft close. You might buy the land first under the number, and then you close it out, and then all of a sudden now you're designing the school, so we open that project back up. That way the tracking of the money through the system is always there. And then you soft close because you have the design, but you don't have the construction. Once you have construction money, you reopen it because it ties all in that stream of that property and that contract.
Yeah,
or
you know,
that
your total cost
project.
of ownership for the project as a whole.
So right now it's kind of like calling it a soft close.
So 11, but the money's gone. No.
Yeah.
Soft means no more money.
No more money.
So 1106,
Was 1106 is our K5 or the new K5.
Yeah, it's
yes.
Journey Elementary.
okay, so
And
revert
it
funds.
says
sitting on
revert.
top of the junior high.
It was demolished.
That was
Okay.
demolished.
Kelly Walsh.
1107, we are in a warranty phase.
And leave open.
And when does that warranty conclude? Because that's only site work on warranty now, right?
The site work will be over, the warranty will end next September.
September?
And Paul, we're very close. I'm looking at you thinking in the reconciliation of funds, we're just waiting on.
I know I've seen some of those last applications. There were a couple of big ones that just came
Those are
through
those.
that I'm assuming you worked with Ryan and got those numbers all
Is
worked
everything
out.
we talked about that?
Yep.
And worked through, yeah.
Yep.
So we're just waiting for those funds.
Let me ask you a question on 1107. You got 5.6 million. Could you revert 4 and leave $1 million cash? Because a 5 million could do, like, our component is, I mean, that could appropriate a lot of projects. So it stalls the next
I can't anticipate we're gonna need
5 million.
5 million
I
for
hope
anything.
My
Yeah.
issue is we have about, was it 1.7 coming back to the district after we went through all the reallocations and repaying of funds?
Yeah, so some of those
So
funds
some of those funds
are actually required, so
Gotcha.
that there is not 5 million
So I'm
available.
You'll do a Dow to then ship them a
Correct.
Yeah.
check.
But I'm gonna have to admit, for this district, I do not want to take them back until we go through a facility plan that we say
Next
it's
year.
done.
I would-
So we're not gonna do that until next year.
Alright.
Now, one other little piece though that we're not talking about, 2 of these projects, 1107 and 1110,
Right, which are both indicated here with the warranty phases.
also
Okay, so we
have
both-
an additional appropriation that does not show up in this list.
That's in a bucket though, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
And my assumption is next year when we close those 2, that bucket's gonna go away as well.
I can't even imagine why that would.
Yeah. So just take a holistic approach.
So I'm gonna put in the notes that next year, at the closure of 1107 and 1110, the additional special bucket will also be closed.
11.
1111, we are talking about the Student Fitness and Activity Center. And it stated here it can be closed and funds be reverted.
Are we ready for that one to close, Doug?
So they're not gonna be different.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then we get into 1115, which is Pine View Elementary School. And we have a little bit of a comment here. So
So
you indicated the
Let me
design.
explain what I'm trying to say. So the design is complete. There's really no reason to keep it open, except that if we ever get construction money,
Yeah.
we're going to have to review the design. So I don't know how you want to
I'd leave
keep
it open based on what we just talked about.
Well, and I'll tell you the reason we still want to leave it
I would
open.
agree.
We have a president who keeps talking about an infrastructure project, which in the past, infrastructure projects have gone for road projects, public improvements. One of the potential things that was listed in the past was school projects that are shovel ready.
Agreed.
That's the closest to a project in the state that we've got that's
Yep.
shovel ready.
So can you update
So
that to
I
me?
would,
So would you like me to take that away and
Yeah.
Yeah.
leave open?
I'm with you. So I put leave open and won't touch
You
that.
want to type
thank
on
you.
there?
That's,
They would.
Plus it
like
gives us
their
extra money.
section to say leave open.
In case, you know, it's needed.
1115, is that right?
Yes.
1115.
Still have to review the design 'cause it's 3 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that gives us cash to do that. So when we go to the legislature, it just
Just a
shrinks.
second,
the
I'm looking at
request.
the language.
We can go faster too,
Right.
Yeah.
you know.
District 3.
I've seen the word Red Creek Modular for years. I don't even know where it's at. It's in the Tulies, isn't
It's between here and nowhere.
Here in Medicine-Ville,
Yeah.
it? Okay. And is it-
So,
you need to drive by there.
It's done?
okay.
Yes, it's been on
Okay.
for a while.
Okay, got it.
So we can close and revert that position on 1116. And then 1118 is the alternative high school of Roosevelt.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, I kind of jumped ahead. And that was also indicated by the district to go ahead and close and revert.
Okay,
And
got it.
then we get into 1119, which is your South Ridge Elementary School. And you also indicated to close and revert.
It's done?
It's done.
Wow, like done?
It's done as it's gonna get.
Okay.
Okay.
There's no warning of anything.
Yeah, the warranty's gone.
I hope not. I did all the procurement on that like
Did you?
10 years ago.
Yeah, a long time
So,
ago.
That
Yeah,
made me feel old when you just said that.
yeah, me too.
All
I
right.
remember meeting there and walking the building and everything back in the day. Cool.
So
Okay, got that.
with appropriations being covered now, we'll get into security. And I will let Paul talk about security if he's ready.
I am ready. Interesting things have happened with security. What she's got up here, if you bring that back down so that they can see the whole list of 20.
It was rolling on its own there.
When in 2015, when we did the evaluation of every facility in the state, these 20 were identified and they were prioritized. So the one that is identified as priority 1 was determined by our experts to be the most important thing that schools should do, and go all the way down to 20 saying this is the 20th priority. Now this isn't saying these are all priorities for security for your school, but these are the top 20. And then there were deficiencies that were identified within these 20 priorities for every building. So you were given funding based on 8 of the priorities, 1 through 6, 8, and 11. Now you have expended some of those funds, but you haven't expended all of those funds. We've also worked with you to redirect some of the funds to the things that are important to you and take them away from things that are not important to you.
Right.
And when we did that, we asked you to basically say, we understand that we won't be refunded, we won't be funded again for the ones that we move funds off of. And so you have expended some of those dollars. So you can see that the amount that was available, $860,000. The budget was adjusted to $884,000. The $24,000 that was added, I right off the top of my head don't remember why $24,000 was added to your bucket, but I'm guessing we early on had a project manager who was providing unanticipated funds to some projects, and so you must have gotten some additional unanticipated funds. And then you've encumbered the $467,000. So, and then you actually expended of that encumbered amount, 279. So you still have 416,000. But they're still pointed at those 8 green colored priorities. Well, we went back to the legislature on behalf of the districts and we said, we'd like to get some additional funds. And the concept we had when we went back to the legislature was, let's open it up and let the districts pick of these 20, but it would still have to be a deficiency that came out in that report in 2015. Let you decide where you want to put some monies. Well, the legislation came out and it didn't say that. The legislation came out and said the additional $4.9 million points back to the same 8 items again. Well, our director, having been kind of on the forefront of that, said that isn't what we were after. Went to the governor and said, Governor, you've got the power to line item veto that requirement and go back on the 8. Will you work with us? The governor said yes. He vetoed that requirement. So where does that leave us? Now it doesn't tell where the money needs to go. It just ends by saying the commission will make a determination on where to use these funds, because that's what's left that didn't get vetoed out. So now in May, we are going to be going to the commission and we are going to present to them an option that would allow the monies to go to the 20 for the new $4.9 million that gets spread out to all the districts. So you've still got left the $416,000. We also have asked, can we take the $416,000, open it up to the 20 as well? So that's what we will present in May. We don't know whether it's going to happen. You've listened to our commission. They make up their mind. We'll make a presentation to them. We're going to suggest, let's open it to the 20. We'll find out in May if that's what they want to allow.
I was going to ask you if that was a possibility. That would make it way easier.
So what would happen is all your remaining funds would be pulled into a bucket. Your new funds put into a bucket. You have all 20 priorities. You can start designating where you want to put the money, oldest money first, and then after you expend your oldest money, then your newest money can start being used on that.
That would be awesome.
But you can't create a project that didn't include on your deficiency list. So you can't create a project. Now that's where the next 10% security balance comes in here. That is money you can designate to any security project you want to create. So that's kind of magic money there.
Right.
Now we've got 2 issues with that. One of the things the legislation told us as a department, and we kind of missed this earlier on, don't let them overspend the money. Well, we've had some districts who've overexpended money. You can see that you have not overexpended your dollars. 715,000, you've spent 71,000, and 102,000 of the 656. Don't overexpend it. But here's my advice, my friendly advice. You can ignore me. You can do whatever you want. Be really careful, because that's the only major maintenance money that exists, that you can create something that doesn't already exist. So be very careful with it. Don't overexpend it. We don't expect that bucket's going to be refilled again, because we got the 4.9. We're thinking they're not going to allow this to continue on where you guys get special major maintenance money for security. So be mindful of what you do with it, and be careful with it. Don't overexpend it. And just remember, if there's ever been magic money provided by the state, that's it right there.
And as you see here is the 2017, 2018 was represented, and that was issued in the Brandon session laws. And as that was, there was a year of session laws that they did not delegate for 2019. However, this following session law did indicate there was 2019 money. So please understand, it's on a case by case, year by year. Don't count it until it's in your bucket, I would say. I think it was more to match whatever the capital monies were in that project.
The
So
monies are tight.
money is tight,
The
but
districts or the department's not gonna rank a recommendation. So all it does is dilute your major maintenance.
right,
Just go give us, or making a capital construction appropriation.
it's out
Keep it
of your,
clean.
yeah, it's out of your major maintenance, not on top of. Any other comments? Did you guys have any comments on this portion?
SFC's Buffalo in May, is that right?
It's Buffalo in May.
Any important reason for comment by districts on?
Well, in
what you
particular,
just-
I would say this $4.9 million would be a great reason to go and talk to the commission.
That's where I'm at.
Again, I'm gonna go back to tell you, 20 priorities are what have been categorized. 20 are not all priorities. So
Right.
that's not all possible projects that you guys could be doing. You might want to think about that, and when you go to the commission, which I would recommend you do, talk to them about what you think is your priorities with security. I believe they can be influenced. We're not going to do it. That's not our job. We don't do that. We would expect, if you guys have got some ideas, show up and tell them what you're thinking.
I imagine we'll have the policy that we're proposing posted, and read it and make recommended amendments to it and how it could be improved.
Yeah, because we're going to make a proposal to them, and you guys might read it and go, this is ridiculous. Show up and tell them that. Tell them what you think would be the best way to do it.
Well, and also you want to also explain the history of when this first rolled out. You know how very rigid and strict it was trying to deploy the money. And as a little bit of time, you can right now write a letter to shift it from one bucket to the other to utilize it. And I think that's one of the things you have to indicate to the commission, letting them know going forward that we need the flexibility and not the rigid portion of it, so that they understand the importance from a district side. And explaining why some districts are really struggling to even use the money was how that first rolled out.
So is there part of the next condition assessment to be part of security, part of that?
Not currently. That's not something that we've scheduled. It's one of those things that we're continuing in discussion with the legislators. They have not funded us for a reassessment of security items. One of the reasons that got slowed a little bit is there was a proposal for a new security group between us, WDE, Homeland Security, that didn't really materialize like they were expecting. One of the reasons that they're holding off is they first want to make sure that there's a structure in place, and then they're going to talk about doing it again. I don't think that, and Brandon, you can tell me, I don't think we will not continue to request that be considered, but so far we haven't gotten any traction on that. But again, your voices are very important in that. Talk to your legislators. You happen to have some local legislators who are relatively influential in this area. I would suggest that if you've got some ideas, let them know what you think.
Yeah, because the assessment's it's a little dated.
That's what I was thinking.
And we'll get to in a minute, we're gonna do our next assessment. We could attach it on if we got direction and stuff.
Well, if we
That's what I
get
was
funding,
wondering.
And we need money.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we can't send somebody out there on goodwill. We've got to be able to, and
We just
and
need
it's
some
a,
money back on capital projects.
well, it's 500 and some buildings that they have to go through these
Operations versus
assessments.
capital.
It's a big project.
So if you get the funding, will that be included in the FEA
It
assessment?
could.
That's an
If you get
idea.
the funding.
Again, we need to put the bug in some legislators'
Makes sense
ears
to do
to
it
think
then,
about
you
it.
already have them out.
Yeah,
Cost
don't
effective.
disrupt
Yeah, it doesn't make.
the districts more than you have to.
Yeah, well, and that's
Understand for you
another
guys.
thing. Don't mess with your condition assessment stuff because you want that to happen.
Correct.
So don't hard sell too far that you convince them to stop doing what we need to do. You know.
And
So,
by state statute, every 4 years we do the assessments on the buildings
but
as the
again,
condition.
they want to hear from you.
All right, let's go ahead and move on into capacity. And as you see here, we've illustrated and broke it down with it being larger. These are representing the in-town schools and where your capacity stands, as well as we kind of show the representation of the buildings that were mothballed. We also show the one that was disposed and sold in that information there. Okay. So when I get into the junior high school, we show the representation of both of those and where you're standing in terms of capacity.
One of the comments on the high schools, I'm not interacting with these people as often as I used to be, but one of the comments that I continued to get was, we're bursting at the seams. We don't have enough room. But you can see the reasons why. The two primary high schools are holding the students, and your other facilities that have capacity are not, obviously,
Right.
because by structure, Pathways doesn't show capacity or doesn't show enrollment because they're enrolled at the other two schools.
I
So,
got a question. So we were doing all the planning. It was like 250 and 250 or so are supposed to come up. Would that happen?
Right now, we just did enrollment for next year. There's close to 300 coming out of NC, and there's about 296 coming out of Kelly for next year.
nice.
And they go over to Pathways?
They will be going to.
Yeah, and there's supposed to be some morning, afternoon, and all that. And it happened. Cool.
No, it's just that's been a journey, as you guys are aware of.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a journey, and the principals and cabinet have really been working to retool what that space is used for, because it's what you just said is very cognizant in our minds as far as that space was dedicated out of these high schools.
Right.
Create a space, so you need to utilize it. So the board's been very, very active in it, and the first blush for next year was quite encouraging based on numbers.
So yeah, 300 and 300.
It's nice. Yeah.
It's hard to see when you plan something and then the building doesn't get built for 5 years. I mean,
Right.
it's like looking way out there.
That's encouraging.
Yeah.
It's not done yet, but it's encouraging.
So as you look here, we've got the enrollments projections here, and we're mainly focused on those that are in town and where you stand as a district here. And you can show that we have just as really looking at the graphic below that you've really got a solid, steady, and just a slight incline going from there. When you look across on the actual data, we take 10 years of trailing data, and as you work across, we look at each going from kindergarten to your first grade, and as you go across, you get an average of a survival rate that works into the projections. Mm-hmm. And you can see that you guys really hold solid. I mean, the lowest you were back in 2009 in your kindergarten class. But as you go across, you're going to see that one of the highest peaks was in 2012 with 1178. And when you come back over on that right-hand side and you look at survival rates, You dip down in that kindergarten, and that might be just because of holding them back because they're just not quite ready to go on. But then you get into that freshman, sophomore, junior year where sometimes kids lose their way or they decide they want to be homeschooled or, learning. But what's really interesting is how you peak back up at that senior year to 102.
You get some students who must re-engage to come back for their senior year.
So,
which is good, and this is typical of a pattern we see on most districts, although we looked at one last year, or last month, that it dipped way down their senior year. Well, they happen to have an adjacent school district where a lot of their kids are going to.
Sure.
So, but you guys don't have that problem. There's no adjacent school district somebody's going to pop over to here.
well, and we were visiting which one had the better football/basketball team. That it shifted from
Yeah.
year to year,
Wonder where
but
that's at.
no comments there. Going forward, any comments or questions on the graphic
Just didn't dip as hard as I thought, really.
with the downturn
Yeah.
of the oil?
Yeah, I thought it was more.
Oh, it's just that the up would have been
Yeah,
more
right. I was
up.
looking at
Yeah, it's
here.
it's a flatter
Yeah,
it's a
it
flatter
just flattened.
trajectory than what it was.
Yeah. Yeah, versus like right here,
If you
pretty good
remember,
tear.
yeah, if you look back,
And then-
if you remember those projections, it had us on a path that you're going to be building an elementary school every 2 years in
Yeah.
Casper, and that projection was for the
And
steep
then
incline,
pull.
and it's just flattened.
Gotcha.
Instead of peak and valley, you kind of smoothed out and stabilized.
But there's a decrease in funding, though, right?
15,000 a student on average is what that's
ADM
worth.
change.
Yep.
Yeah.
The ATM, when they did when there was fractional ADM, that's a reduction. And then when you also go from the school level to the district level, that's a reduction also.
Okay.
So even though it's remaining relatively flat, the ADM adjustment that we calculated is a reduction.
So block grant money
Correct.
had an impact.
And the nice thing with the legislature, and there's no complaint in that whatsoever. It's simply, it was really good that they phased it in over 3 years.
Yeah, you got a 3-year
Versus-
buffer.
Because we were building our own buffer in, we were putting money away saying, we're gonna stair step this.
Yeah.
Because we didn't know whether the legislature would stair step it.
Right.
And they did.
Wow.
And so it just absolutely, it makes sense.
It's working.
So the next graphic we get into is the statewide capacity list. And as we show here with the schools that you have active, it puts you at 105%, less than 300. But we also represent down at the bottom of the mothballed elementaries that you still have online, if you choose to bring those back in to alignment to accommodate those seats that are needed.
Question I'd have is how much money do you think you saved doing that?
Oh, I wish I would have brought that down for you because I didn't want to do all the calculations. You are looking, don't quote me on this, but I want to say it was somewhere in the neighborhood of 500 to 750,000 a school.
Wow.
Because the teacher, so if you think of it this way, the teaching staff is going to follow the kids.
Okay.
So we had a lot of space, as you can see in our other buildings. So we staff on a section, right? 18 kids, K3, and then a little higher than that at 4 or 5. So those teachers are going to follow the kids.
Okay.
So they move. So where you save your cost is an administrative cost. You're not paying principal, administrative specialist, custodians in the
Yeah.
buildings. So it's all the support areas that you're saving your dollars. And we looked at the efficiencies of what we call a 4-3 school, right? 4 sections of kindergarten, first, second, third,
Yeah.
and then 3 sections above, as compared to, let's say, Mountain View, which was a 1 all the way through. So your administrative cost is much higher in a small.
Economy of scale.
Economy of scale. And so we save significant dollars on an ongoing basis.
So 500 to 700, because I've been asked. 500
Yeah,
to
I can get you
700
the exact, I have that.
per
document.
school.
That was-
I think it's just of interest to us. We
Yeah.
don't really have a specific
I'm kind of,
purpose
I might
for
look
that.
up before 3 weeks ago, all those documents, I just, I estimated it out and compared the differences of what it would cost. So the interesting thing for me, the question I have for you, and I know this is on Doug's mind heavy, just joking, Doug. I just made that up, is under state statute, my understanding, mothball is 3 years.
3 years, and then you just have to reapply.
Is that what it is?
You just go back to the commission.
I don't think we've ever experienced a commission request where they say, no, you can't continue.
Because that's a
to
really
mothball.
bad catch-22 for the state, if they were to say, no, you can't.
We haven't experienced it. It doesn't mean that it isn't a possibility. It's never occurred. in particular with a profile of a district like you've got, I don't think there's anybody in their right mind who would ever say, no, we're not going to let you mothball, knowing the type population and the swings that you can experience.
Right. And then the cost, if we had to dispose of them, and all of a sudden we're up to, our capacity would be just crushed.
Right. So I can just tell you from what we know as a department, we would not recommend against continued mothball.
Or some combination thereof. I just look at Willard and University Park, they are incredibly small schools, inefficient small schools.
Right.
One sections.
You could go 2 sections, 2 1.5s, but they just, I mean, you have 200 kids in them, you're busting at the seams.
Now, I'm assuming that you have removed from your inventory your greatest challenge elementary schools.
I'd argue, yeah.
Yeah.
Hands down.
That's what it appeared, you know, from an outsider
You
looking
look at
in.
Mills, you look at Grant, you look at those, absolutely we did.
Yeah.
And that was part of the facility condition index
Right.
and the amount of, and what their scores were.
So it was a combination of
Yeah.
size,
Capacity,
efficiency,
and then-
condition.
Yep, you got it.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what we did.
So Troy provided this comment previous. District has sufficient capacity for enrollment of all grade levels or grade configuration levels. The 4 mothball buildings are available if the district chooses to occupy them at any of them. Therefore, reducing any capacity concerns in the elementary buildings that are being occupied.
So then I guess I would ask so that I can continue to note here, do you have any plans for changes for those 4 schools for the next year? So no changes anticipated from current configuration.
I really wish I could tell you we have a huge incoming kindergarten class.
Right.
Yeah.
Wasn't it this year? That's a
It was a big class. We had 1,100 kids in kindergarten.
1,100 in kindergarten.
It was a big class. And then this last one just walked in at about 9:15, which is small, the smallest we have. But they're clicking up a little bit.
So,
Tough to go.
and it's hard to keep those teachers and, fluctuate from kindergarten on or
And you
just
lay
move
off
that
teachers.
bubble. When you have
Big
that
enough.
bumper crop
You can
moving
keep on
through.
Moving resources.
No charter schools are indicated in your district at this time.
I know you had a group that attempted charter status. Are they still out there?
Not heard much about it.
Okay.
Is that Excel?
No, it was
Somebody else.
what do you think? I remember that. It was, I'll think of it in a second. No, they're not. I've not heard anything from
Okay.
So the next.
Guild Charter School.
Guild.
That's right. It was Guild.
Guild
Yeah.
was trying to,
The board approved them?
or
No.
did not approve them.
Did not.
And they went to the state board, and the state board did not approve.
Okay.
If you think about it, it's really hard in Natrona County, just from choice.
Right.
You have choice of where you go to school, right? And so, but no.
The next thing we get into is called condition. And the graphic here is, we have so much changeover within the state. So we try to keep the good graphics in here to educate those and also assist the rest of us in refreshing and talking about the lifespan of a building and how that between preventative maintenance and major maintenance, expanding the lifespan of the building. The next couple sheets you'll see here are just the top portion of the list, at least through 3.2 on both educational and support buildings, as you see here indicated. The next thing we break into, other
You
than,
got one.
no,
many.
they do not have anything indicated in the top of both of the lists. The next thing we'll
That's good.
show is your representation of your actual buildings for yourself. We show the FCI, which is the Facility Condition Index of both the 2016 against the 2012 indicated here. Now, this is our list from 2016, so you can see some quotes of a few of these had closed beside them. There are a few to add or slash mothballed. So as we go into the 2020, we'll have a better updated one that will capture those changes as well.
In particular, let's look at Frontier Middle School. That is technically closed, correct?
It's gonna be, it should be labeled Casper classical.
And that's the way it is in here. It says Frontier Middle
Yeah, it
School
is.
/ Casper
So
Classical
Frontier will
Academy.
drop off.
But the Frontier Middle School is technically closed now.
It will close and it should drop off.
The facility, I looked at the plan and it says Casper Classical Frontiers, says closed.
Right, okay,
You got it.
We're good.
yeah,
So
okay.
going forward in the future, it can just become Casper Classical.
Someone need a briefcase? There's one right there. Okay, thank you. All right. If I didn't just give someone a briefcase.
No, that was here, and I probably messed them up when I was setting up the tables here for our meeting. I moved it off to the side, and they probably didn't track where it had moved. So it's probably my
Someone's
fault.
stressing.
I know.
If
So-
it's our group, then we'll
So
have
Paul,
to
the
follow up.
assessment for facilities will be done in 2019. Is that right?
2020.
Yeah, because this fall we'll start here in just a second. We'll hit that next one. We'll start the procurement of it and all that.
So as we say here, and when we indicate, the buildings are all in relatively good condition when we sum it up, okay? You did have a specific note here that the Special Education Service Center has been sold and closed, so we've captured that as well. Going forward, we get into major maintenance, and you guys have worked with me close.
$36.
Yeah. So we've worked on the old work orders, getting their statuses updated, as well as the new work orders, getting those into the system. We know it's a all-year process, but it's kind of nice to do a little push here. And I've also ran a new updated just to kind of capture and uploaded it in AIM, just if anybody wants to reflect where you guys stood
So
at this
the
time.
next 10% request that you put in, put 8% and 10% in there so that you can empty that bucket out.
Close
please.
that.
You will make JJ so happy. Because if we were to try to move that into the 10% bucket, it would take an act of all kinds of things, and through legislation, it would be just nicer to
So,
clean it
so
up
just
properly.
whatever your next 10% request is, just add the 8% in there so that you can bill that $86 out.
46
46
even.
I'd like to
Yeah,
double it.
46
I'd
even,
almost
it
double it
doesn't
like that.
increase.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll give you the other
You know?
40.
That's funny.
Okay. Also with this, you see this is our 680 balance. It shows a representation of what your payment was, what your ending balance, what the expenditures were through 2018. Of course, the 8% we've already just discussed that we need to use up. The 10% enhancements where you stand there, and also your 10% security ending balance out of that. And the 10% security and enhancement, that is not on top of, that is out of the major maintenance earmarked for that use. The next tables that we see and indicated, the very first one just breaks it down for 2018 with your major maintenance category with the expenses broke across the district. And the following tables break it down not only by that, they break it down by building, by major maintenance category, and expenses. And as being a larger district, you have several pages of this. So,
And I don't think everything got captured here because some of the later approvals probably aren't captured in here, but they are captured in AIM.
Right.
And AIM is the official record. So those are all covered, even though they technically may not show up in this list.
Makes sense.
Do you guys still do the CMAR task order approach on major maintenance?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's not CMAR, it's construction manager, but it's similar.
Yeah.
Same idea.
Then they show them a task order to go do X, Y, Z.
We actually had some fairly significant number of bidders for that.
Yeah, we did.
There were 4.
Yeah, there were 4.
Who was your last one? Hope?
No, Caspar was the last one.
Gaspar was the last one?
Mhm.
And then they have the bid.
And then you
They
retain
want
all
again.
4, and then, hey, Brandon's got expertise in this, we'll have him do that,
Okay, just do one.
or just do one.
Just one.
So Gaspar continuing?
They got the bid.
They got the bid. They were low,
Haas,
significantly low.
Sampson, Haas,
Pope.
Sampson,
Pope.
Pope.
Cool.
Casper.
That process seems to be working pretty well.
Works really well.
You guys do it, I think Lerman one does something similar too.
Do it.
so the
Good
next
process.
next thing we have is just talking about low condition scores, the FCA or CA scores. And through legislation and the legislators, sometimes representation, they'll come back and ask us, are the districts taking care of those low condition scores? What we've had here is our spreadsheet from 2016, which indicated the lows, ones and twos, and for as large of a district you guys have, as many buildings you have represented, that's very impressive to have that few ones and twos.
Doesn't take a few more of these off.
And as you can
Right.
see, you've indicated most of these you've already completed and taken
Well, and
care
several
of.
of these facilities are gone. The adult-based learning environment, that one's gone? Or
it's-
no, that
it's
one's still, that's your
that's
leased
still
facility.
leased, But Grant's gone. I fixed that one by selling it.
Now, why would the leased one show up on here? Because that,
Because it was previously owned building, probably.
Well, I'm not
Where's
really
the
sure.
number
we got?
That was a question
the
we
very
had.
first one there, that's in a leased facility.
And
That
there's-
shouldn't actually show up on
There's
this
nothing
list.
Okay.
we can do to fix it. We
When-
can spend major maintenance.
We started adjusting how we represented the leases in AIM, and this was probably prior to when they executed this
See, it's
list.
not on mine. That's so bizarre.
Right, because, well, and I might have expanded it out when I've seen it, so.
Yeah,
Yes,
because that
that's it.
one technically should be taken off there, but like you say, Grant is gone and
But with that being said, I know that we used to show leases prior to, but we've been delegating it differently.
okay.
How many active do you have on
So
the
what do we do with Able, since I can't fix it with major maintenance funds and it's in pretty sorry condition?
You have to negotiate that with your landlord.
Yeah, you're leasing it from the landlord.
But you're leasing it from them, we should never have to do another assessment on it, and it'll go away the next round.
Yeah, okay, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
It
It's
should
surprising
go
that they
away.
did an assessment on it.
Unless you were gonna buy the building or
No,
something.
not
I'm
even
not-
I think,
I
you
even-
gotta understand, we're doing over 500 buildings.
Okay,
You know, they
sure.
lose track of which building is
You own,
leased.
you don't.
We give them addresses, here's the addresses. The assessors don't know.
Well,
Whether you own it,
actually, in
lease
this
it.
one he did, I went with him to Able and I told him it was leased.
Huh.
So I
Well,
It
and
hits
we-
the database
And
somewhere
we
to
used
do
to
it.
record the leased buildings in here, and that probably got put in
That's
the
weird.
list.
So again,
So-
yeah, it's nothing you've done. It's been something that's happened on our side.
So what do we have left up there? Because most of those have been completed. I'm working, the work is complete.
We gotta tear down the greenhouse
I knew about
at
that one.
Powder River. We gotta finish Summit and then that list will be clear.
Wow.
So it won't exist, is what my point, yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
So technically, we were talking about that quarterly payments. You should be sitting good for a while. I mean, a lot
We're
of,
in good shape.
yeah,
Now,
your buildings are
there
good.
were two added on the, because they couldn't assess Midwest, they came out late and just assessed it last fall.
Oh, because there were no students in it at the
Right,
time.
and they added, there's two, but those will get taken care of.
Okay. So the next thing we get into and talking about is the statewide condition assessment. And as by state statute, we're required for every 4 years to go out and do an assessment. The previous assessment was done in 2016. This is the proposed schedule going out from the department. What we'll do is in this next fall of 2019, the department is going to procure a professional. And once we get the procurement, we're going to have the scope of things. We'll start working towards that. Once that is indicated, and we'll go forward with a training session for both the school districts and the staff in probably about March, April of 2020. Once that gets done, we will roll out and do assessments and measurements starting the 1st of May, going through October. And this is where I get on and talk about not doing the dog and pony show. Don't make it look pretty and glistening. You want them to see the components for its reality. So when you go back and ask for a component project, it didn't get a 5, which is an excellent condition. It really reflected it was near a 1 and 2 where you had a failure. With that being said, if you are one of the first ones out of the gate in May to get an assessment, they're also going to be going through 500 buildings. They're going to be communicating with you. Once they generate their report with their notes and information, you wanted to have that right person going out and walking through with them and pointing those things out. But with that, once they send the report with their notes, you need to scrutinize in that 2-week period that they give you, your deadline, if you have an issue with any of those scores, so that they can reassess and work with you to have it corrected or need to reflect what is really there.
Do you anticipate it'll be FEA doing these assessments?
We have no way of knowing. We're going to put it out for procurement. We aren't aware of a large universe of people who are capable of doing this work. We believe that the possibility exists that it could be somebody else, but we don't believe that will be what happens. But we'll only know after we procure.
Yeah. What kind of, just out of curiosity, what kind of procurement is it? Is it based solely on price, or how do you?
No.
Qualifications.
Yeah, it's qualifications.
Yeah,
It's got to be somebody who understands this process and has experience that they can show us that they've got the capability to do it. And then, of course, we've got the window of opportunity to do the work, the number of facilities, and we've got a deadline.
Right.
So it's got to be, we know there's some new laws, and we're going to be talking up here about professional service procurement. And we just know that within the borders of this state, that somebody with that skill and capability level likely does not exist.
Right.
And you also have to have someone that is able to work with the AIM system, which is AssetWorks, and know and have that ability to contract there and have those skills to get that information uploaded correctly.
So Dennis is going to be putting together a team.
Doesn't sound
I thought
like
Dennis might lead a
that'd be good.
consortium with the.
Well, actually, the legislature would love that.
I know they would.
They would absolutely love that, and I wouldn't laugh at somebody if they've got the capability of doing it.
He's building a house in Costa Rica. I think he's a little busy.
Would it be conflict of interest if I did that as a side business?
Yeah, probably not. Probably can't do both.
I just built a house out of state, and I'm sitting here.
Yeah, you are.
Trying to figure out as well.
Governmental permitting problems.
He's got fruit trees. He can
Yeah,
survive.
he
He
can.
can live in a tent.
I just think of Dennis when I think of this. I said, Dennis, you should.
Yeah. The next portion we get into is talking about components, and this was in 2018. Those of you that know that you can apply in that time form, this was the information that was provided and the rankings of all of the projects that were brought forward. It did go in front of commission and was considered. It will go in front of legislation, and by fall, they will determine the amount of funding that they will put towards components, and depending on the amount of funding that is determined, will determine how far down the list we can go.
So on average, you're looking at $6 million, or less.
You're getting a bunch here?
So you can see 6 million that goes
6 million is
to
what they
number
approve.
4.
Oh, okay.
And there are some very vocal legislators who don't want this process to continue.
They don't like it. They want to take care of it inside.
Greg, what'd you forget?
No. Luckily, I thought I was just out of town. If not, I'd have to mail it.
Good seeing you,
Do they
Greg.
want this all to go away and just be taken care of with major maintenance, or they want
Yes.
to replace with something
And
different?
partially, you're gonna have to understand that has to do with our input, because what our requests to both our commission and to the select committee have been increase major maintenance so that the resources districts need are available to them, so we don't have to do this process.
Yeah.
Now, realistically, there isn't many people who think that's gonna really work. If you're a little Claremont and you get $90,000 a year and you've got a $250,000 roof that goes bad, you're literally gonna do no major maintenance for 5 years so that you can do that roof. We know that the reality of it, the concept makes sense, the reality of it isn't really there.
Yeah, I mean, we tried
I mean,
because the major maintenance
it would
study.
work with our district, we could save up a little money.
Right.
Take care of it. That's not a problem.
But it's a problem of scale. Small districts don't have the ability to make decisions like you do because you've got a bank of $7 million to work with. They get 90,000.
It'll be tough because that legislation that we had for the major maintenance study about increasing the CRV from 2 to 2.5%, it died. And in House Bill, what is it, 8 or so? Tried it again, and it died. So the ultimate goal would be to get a raise so we can get off of this.
Right.
If you never get the raise, you're never going to have enough cash to cash flow.
Right.
Problems.
So we've kind of touched on all the notes that Troy had brought forward for us, discussing about using the 8% before you use the 10%. Also continuing to maintain your buildings with available major maintenance. What was that? I'm sorry.
Said that 46 will really help us out.
Also, the next opportunity is for requests of component projects will be in the 2020, and for preparation of the 2023-24 biennium budget requests.
And then additional notes that I've added, lease space will not be shown in the next assessment. All other low scores items shown above have been removed or remedied by the district. So
I'm trying to help Brandon out here
The
with
blind guy.
the blind guy.
Yeah.
So this is
This is all legislation stuff. So House Bill 8, I just was looking, that's the one that would have gave you the raise, and it failed 2 sessions in a row, so we'll see. Let's see, the first one's Public Works and Contracts, so this deals with FF&E. So the architecture is supposed to write the specifications from a Wyoming supplier only. So make sure you follow that one. That would affect you guys.
So what we've been doing, because we went through a different process here. You guys bid, what you didn't get bids on, you've been allowed to go out and purchase. That's done. That isn't happening anymore.
Yeah, because they changed the law. And I think it's effective immediately. So if you got any FF&E coming up,
So
we'll follow
it's
that.
got to be bought from
Wyoming vendor.
Wyoming vendor.
They're specified by a guy that's
How does that
from
work
Wyoming.
if it's effective immediate? Because we've got one purchase left and we're done.
We're
I
proceeding
think
with
the
what
law
we've
would
got
trump.
in place. I'm telling you, it's going to be any upcoming projects. We've got a ball rolling that we're not going
Totally
to stop
agree, and
on.
I'm fine with that. I'm just trying to figure out with the closeout of the Troy County High School with what we just put through.
You've already got your approvals.
Okay.
You're good.
Okay.
You're moving on. Your approvals
That's what
are
we're sure.
done.
And
Yeah.
this only applies to state-funded CapCon, so if we do district-funded CapCon, we don't have the same restrictions for.
This is all
That's
for procurement, for state, schools, community colleges.
So, I mean, if the district chooses to do a capital construction project, like they decide to build an addition to Park
Sure.
Elementary School, and they need to buy FF&E for the
Yeah.
classrooms, are we
This
limited?
applies.
That applies.
Applies.
That applies.
Because we have, we use state money.
Yeah, that's,
Anything.
yeah, the state, and you'll see the theme. I mean, the state
it-
says if it's state money, it's going to state people. I mean, that's their
I agree
goal
with
for
that.
the session. Yeah, let's keep us employed and the money. And it may, one of the arguments when people testified on various things here is, well, it's gonna cost more, but the ultimate goal is state money goes to state people.
And
And
actually,
that's
would
their intent.
you and Casper here are in great shape. You've got access to relatively rich resource base for vendors. Little Matizzi, I'm telling you, those people don't have a lot of options.
Yeah,
except for
So that's-
hand-me-down.
It asked if that applied to district-funded capital constructions, and it does.
sure, all procurement. The next one's House Bill 65, and what this does is hopefully it'll actually benefit some of the locals here. It increases the bonding from $7,500 to $50,000, so maybe you can, the barriers to entry for a little contractor to work for you guys would get lifted. A&E procurement, it goes from, now it was currently in a policy on the SFC side. They took districts that added them to 9-2, 1028 through 1032 and made it all the same. So districts, colleges, state agencies, all are on the same playing field. It brought that value to 50,000. School districts construction in 21-3-110, you guys are at 25,000. That was dated like in the 80s or late 70s. Brought that to 50,000, and then it standardized 2 weeks for advertising to match cities and towns because they were 2 weeks.
So
District
now I
for
gotta
1 week.
So now I gotta advertise for 2 weeks?
You get to advertise a 2 week minimum.
It's an opportunity.
Get a blessing.
It's given
I
to
think I
you.
heard it differently.
Yeah. So
So you're telling me the 25,000 went up?
it went up, yeah. As a result, they said, well, what we did is we worked with the economics division, and they used the consumer price index, and they said these present value of today's dollars, these values would be closer, and they weren't all 50. Some of them were, 58, 60, some were 40s, and they said, let's just make it 50, and let's make it 2 weeks across the board, so that the industry knows when they're going to do work for colleges or state or school districts, It's 50,000 and it's 2 weeks and it's simple. And it's
What does a 50,000 mean?
That's your threshold.
Yep, your threshold to do your bidding. So you used to have to go out and get bids for anything
Now we gotta change
25.
board policy.
I know, just exactly where it is, because we just redid our admin reg and it's still
But
25,000.
we ought to change it because that would be huge.
That would help a lot.
Yeah,
well,
Save
yeah, you
money
could
in
so
Think
advertising
about
fees.
what you can
Yeah.
contract in that window is so much greater that you don't have to worry
And
about.
this is
these
procurement
things.
across the district.
It's across the state.
No, I'm saying when that.
You may think it's bad, but this is
Business
I
real
think it's
good.
awesome. I
Yeah.
love
Statute
Yeah,
change.
now
You
you
know,
want to
it's-
read.
everything is over 25,000 these days.
Okay, you want to read it carefully because this applies to construction.
That's what I said.
So in there's a section that talks about school districts, insurance,
Mhm.
paper and stuff.
Mhm.
That's still at 25,000 because $50,000 worth of paper and stuff is a lot. But when the way we pitched it is, 50 grand on a construction, you've mowed the Connex box, you got a job site, and you dumped off an excavator, and you're 8 grand. It's things are different versus when the
Right,
So it'd
statute
be a
was
clause
written.
we were going to,
So you would want to amend your policy.
construction,
For
25,000.
the board policy.
for the admin reg.
Yeah,
Because policy just says it will follow
Okay.
state statute, but the admin reg, we can change that.
okay. Let's change it today.
So one thing I learned about Doug is he does things fast.
I like it.
I gotta take it through 2 readings on cabinet, but yes, we can get it to it.
Well, just
What
attach the
benefits
statute,
I'm
say
going
the
to assume
law.
The answer is yes.
No, not yet.
I guess the
Learn
school
that too
board
today.
could be more restrictive, probably. They couldn't be
Sure they
greater, but you got a law that tells you what to do. It's pretty solid support.
How about the professional services?
Way better.
Is that coming up?
Yeah, so the next one is the major maintenance. We've had multiple discussion. That's the quarterly payments.
Right.
The next one is school finance interfund loans. That just is, they're trying to solve the capital funding problem. So they're moving money and they've got money coming in from, I believe, SIPA account and state mineral or federal mineral royalties and stuff. So it's about how they move at the
So let's talk
legislative
about that
level.
for a second. So that's districts can go and apply for loans.
No, it's
No,
just-
this
it's a
one's the
legis-
legislature can go
Okay.
get money for themselves to give to
Okay,
you.
never mind. So there's
Yeah.
another one where districts can apply for loans.
That's completely separate
Yeah.
from this. We have
Yeah.
not tracked.
Yeah, that one's a legislative
Just making sure I
mechanism.
want to, got some
No,
questions.
yeah,
That probably
that's not
fall
this
under
one.
WDE
It's,
side.
it's a different one.
House Bill 152, if you got any civil work, which I don't know if you do, but that's about, you'd want to work with your architects to identify in the documents better locations of utilities. And the fine was $500, now it's 5,000. People are just blowing through utilities and they say, we got to fix this. So architects and local municipalities and stuff, they have to work better together. So if you got any civil work. Private schools, that's mainly in Jackson. There was a private school that came through. I don't know if you guys got any.
I followed that.
But it would apply to you. Public records, that would apply to school districts. They've changed some of the requirements and when they're due.
Very short window now.
Senate File 74 is a professional service attempt to keep more state dollars local, and it's a scaled system, 40, 30, 20 million, I believe. And the contract value, as you know, in a professional service, you have your architect of record, structural, mechanical, electrical, and they have a percentage scale of how much has to be local. So that is statewide as well. So that affects major maintenance, any project you guys do, no matter what color of money, that statute would apply.
Which should be a boon to state design professionals, which hopefully will mean that we'll get a richer environment of professionals available to us. When everybody knows that any essentially state-related funds are required to be spent in the state, it's going to pique interest of people starting new firms, all those things, so that there should be more choice internally in the state.
Were there any bills that were passed in the law regarding the bidding of professional services with limited limits or caps?
This is the only one. What do you mean? Like,
So
say it's
they're
$10
talking
million.
about, so I'm trying to remember, it was JEC or the facilities, joint education, joint facilities. There was conversation that any professional service above $25,000 had to go to formal
That's up in the other
Yeah.
bill up there,
Okay, so
over
I stepped out.
50,000.
A&E.
So that did go into.
It did, yeah.
And 50,000.
And essentially what it is, that's House Bill 65.
Separate as a
It's
separate
a
line,
procured,
but
it's a step, so tier 1 is 0 to 25, call up,
design.
Paul's architectural, and you can do something. 25 to 50, you gotta get quotes. 50 and quote meaning you gotta get
Did
public.
I hear that right?
And then
Under-
50 and greater, you go through the
I heard that right, under 25, one quote, as long as it's fair and reasonable.
Yeah,
25 to 50
quotes.
quotes.
Like 3.
50 and above is full-blown advertisement, recording.
And that's what I thought we were,
Yeah.
that's
It's
a
like-
significant change.
Big change.
Yeah, like what you do
Because
on,
ours is
no,
10,000.
bigger.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I stepped out
10,000.
part of that. I was making sure, I knew that was, I knew that was working through, I just didn't know.
So
what
it's
it
greater than
Yeah.
it was.
So that goes back to your board policies and stuff, correct? Yep. That's the one.
I wanted to make sure we could do it correctly.
Right.
So you didn't have to ask permission.
So is that going in the cost too?
So I wouldn't be violating board policy, just a local administrative.
When does that go into effect?
It's immediate. It's immediate because they want to, they want to get the economy or the locals involved and stuff. And
That's who we call.
create efficiency.
We call the locals.
Again, you guys are in a good position.
We
You've
are.
got some good locals available to you.
We've got them on speed dial several of them.
Just text them.
All right.
Scroll down. So the budget that was passed came in House Bill 1. We got Satellite High School, got roughly 17 million. We got John C.
That was
Shipperd,
good.
Sheridan 2, got 8 million. Reappropriation of Shawnee, that's they had some funds that were tied up. We reappropriated them for a ranch school. Got a charter school lease. That's why I was interested if you had any charter schools. I'm heavily involved in that. Commission has unanticipated that you're aware of. Security projects, there's the money that we're
And the
gonna be in.
unanticipated is only for the first 2 items on that list.
That is correct, yeah. Security, that's what Paul was talking about earlier. We'll be at the commission meeting in May to discuss. As we were doing our walkthrough this morning, that's the $1 million. So you'll see a tiny increase. That's the appropriation that came through. And then another appropriation for a charter school in Cheyenne. So total, we got 34.2 million that came through in the supplemental appropriations.
Where's the satellite?
Sweetwater, Rock Springs.
Rock
That's what I was
Springs.
thinking it was.
Mhm.
Yep.
That started at 44, 45 million.
I remember that.
The JC said no. We went back, reanalyzed it, and ironically, thinking about your projections, they were like that. We reanalyzed it, and they went down to a more steady, but they're still above 100. And they came up with some other solutions, and here's the appropriation to solve the remedy.
They're also looking at a different way to approach being able to be flexible. They're going to build that groundwork to be flexible to add to very easily if it chooses to at a later date, but they're not limiting themselves there too. So it'll be like a stage by stage, gradually growing.
I think we watched their presentation in Lovell.
Yes. Yes, that would have been right. Now, one thing that everybody knows about those things of best laid plans, expanding buildings is never as clean as people think it's going to be.
Let's just live the dream for now.
We'll just go for a little while.
Utopia on paper.
Yeah, a lot of things.
So we've just reviewed all of the enrolled acts, thanks to Brandon. I think Troy misses you when you're not there for that. On the biennium budget requests, we've just indicated here, talking about going forward with rules and regulations, we're going to have to go by a needs index where it's going to be considered 50% weighted on facility condition, 35% weighted on your facility capacity, and 15% will be weighted on educational suitability going forward on capital projects.
Now, I think one of the keys to identify with this isn't new. It's just that using it is new.
Yeah.
It's been around for a while. There have been previous attempts to implement this, which have not been successful. Keep your televisions tuned to find out how it works this year.
Were you guys at the coding meeting when we went through rules and regs and all that? This is the outcome. And I don't know if everybody knew mathematically the granular detail of what it produced by jamming that back into rules and regs. I think, and here's why I talked to consultants about this. They say they always look at capacity separate, butts and seats. They don't blend that and then mask that with condition as well because it masks the capacity. So say you had a massive capacity need and the market was on a tear, your buildings are in great shape because Doug's doing a phenomenal job. Well, there's no mechanism to drive it because your condition is so good, but your capacity is really high, so it just gets blended in.
Prior years, capacity carried more weight than.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It was
always
number
butts
one.
and seats first. Capacity, then condition, then ancillary.
Well, the legislature, I wonder how it would work out with the legislature as this plays out.
Well, this only is what our recommendation will be.
Right.
Now, what happens after it leaves the hands of the commission?
Yeah.
Well,
It's going to be interesting. Right?
Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, we're going to follow it verbatim.
Yeah.
And then.
But we know we will be highly ridiculed when we submit like this. We know we will be.
Our data, we don't have the suitability scores.
What was going to happen with the Pineview score? When you get the
condition
scores?
They don't even look at Wyoming school.
They don't, okay.
They don't look at it, no. In fact, I went with the assessor and he walked up to the border between the two.
Stopped?
And he stopped. He wouldn't even walk into the
It's in better shape than the rest of the building.
Mm.
And we're working with Troy, parts of it in better shape.
Yeah, there's some components of it that are in good shape. There's some components that are not.
We've got a couple comments.
But long and the short, this is where we're going. Okay. Whether or not this really affects what happens in the future is really out of our hands. That's going to be a level above us.
Pineview's going to be in really rough shape when they come through this.
So
I don't see any requests though for you guys with the condition of your buildings and the capacity that you're in.
Pineview's about it.
Okay.
Right?
Well,
I'm just thinking of mothball buildings, there's some concerns, but.
Yeah, the lot, I would never open it unless you had to, but.
Because you'd rock it to the top.
Not even close.
If you opened it on condition?
It is bad. It's bad.
Okay, you said
Well-
mothballed buildings are a future concern, but not at the moment, or how did you say that? I just want to make sure I capture that correctly.
I don't know, that was more of an editorial comment than anything.
Probably.
Okay, mothballed buildings are a concern to be.
Well, when you do the
tracked.
facility condition index, mothball buildings that were in poor shape was Westwood and
Mountain View and Willard. Willard's
Was it Willard?
Willard's not in really good shape.
so the
University
condition of
Park's
those
in pretty
buildings are a
decent
concern, absolutely.
Okay.
University
So-
Park's in good shape, but it's tiny.
I was thinking on our list, they were like 12 and 15 respectively, whereas Westwood and Mountain View were much higher.
I can't remember.
I can, we have it up here.
but what we noted here was the district currently has no capital requests going for the 2001, 2022 biennium budget. Or, I'm sorry, 21, 22.
Only Pineview will make it.
Only
It doesn't have a
No, it
condition
doesn't.
over
No,
0.65.
it does not.
Because that's in the rules and regs.
That's
and the
wishful thinking.
process.
Well, Pineview is in
It's a
the
long
next
ways from
unique
0.65.
issues
Go
section.
Pineview.
So as we get into this is our wrap up of unique issues, ideas, and concerns. And the comment left here with Troy's information was the Pineview Elementary School has the Wyoming School of the Deaf in portion of the building. And SCD's legal counsel has been working with the district's legal counsel counsel.
Who's no longer representing them.
Jim Bell. Yeah.
And also A&I General Services is complete
To complete it.
to complete the lease agreement. However, both the General Services and the district have not changed or have changed overall legal representation. Once both attorneys are in place and have an agreement that can be completed, it will be forwarded to the district for signature along with a quick claim deed to execute. This will enable the Wyoming School of the Deaf to qualify for major maintenance and also capital funding for the portion of the building. And it will then be owned by the state and the district, and the district to lease the school, or sublease from the School of the Deaf in order to continue the use of the needed space for educational elementary
So
students.
it's gonna come into CM's portfolio,
Yeah.
and then you guys lease it?
We lease
At
it
least
from
for
the
so
state,
long, we'll get it.
and then the state's responsible for major maintenance.
And I'm assuming they'll have to use our commission lease form to do that.
Oh, the district's gonna lease it from CM.
Right, but
Yeah.
but we have a lease form, right? The districts have
That's
to
charter
use.
schools.
Oh, that
Yeah.
doesn't apply?
Yeah, this
For
is
another
district lease, and then we're not gonna pay for it. They pay for it out of their own funds. Leases like they lease buildings and stuff. Only thing we pay lease-wise is charter schools or modulars.
So when Troy and I are talking, it's a very minimal, like $1 lease, otherwise we're gonna have problems getting it through.
No,
Yeah,
okay,
dollars
got
for
it.
a year or
For 10
something.
years
Yeah.
or whatever you're gonna do, so, because that was part of the conversation, was we're gonna agree with, before we do the quick deed and get everything switched over, we're gonna have the lease in front of us.
Yep.
So we're gonna go with their eyes wide open.
Where you
What it
stand
means
and
and where
what
it
you're going.
stands, because I don't wanna turn around and say, here's a bill for $100,000 to lease the building.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this thing's been going forever.
It is.
Well,
we're-
it's also liability issues to try to figure out who's liable for what and how does it get covered.
Well, the biggest issue is major maintenance. There's significant problems for Wyoming School like that on some components.
Yeah.
And so we can't use our major maintenance dollars on it.
Who owns it?
Right.
What's that?
Who owns it?
It's kind of unclear at this time.
Yeah.
If the 8 ball came up, it would say it is unclear at this time.
WDE?
Maybe I should go to the courthouse and say, I own it.
Um,
Well,
It's been
we
like
own pieces
taking
of land.
forever.
We own pieces
You got
of
some
land.
work to do.
Yeah, you do, because you
Yeah,
gotta
there's
see
pieces of land inside the building
Correct,
that are
we
owned
own.
by the district.
and
It's a
state
checker
owns it,
box.
and
Yeah,
Oh,
I've been on the peripheral
We're
edges of
trying to
it.
clean all of it up. and-
Oh, it's a mess.
So if I read this correctly, Troy's in a position where he's gonna send us a document that I can take to Ryan Ford and review, or
Is
what's,
that who's your
That's the
attorney?
attorney.
Ryan Ford's our attorney for
Okay.
Williamsport Day and.
And that's where this question is, and I think that's what we needed to start the ball rolling and get the communication lines started.
Well, we already have, because Jim Bell put it together, working with the attorneys and everything down. It was in Troy's court, and I think Troy was saying, here's waiting for us to say, okay, who are you with now? So we have
Here's your
the final
attorney.
documents.
What firm is Ryan with?
Williamsport Day and Neville.
Spell it.
Williams,
So you got a new counsel.
Porter, Day,
Day
and Neville.
and what?
Neville, Neville.
Okay.
So, since we've covered that, if you feel that we've covered that bit, is there anything else you guys would like to talk about to wrap today up?
Nothing for me.
All
Staff?
good? Huh? Pretty
Cannot
clear.
think of anything else.
Okay. Cool. Well, I'd just like to take a moment to say thank you guys for your work and working with me and preparing for today. And I'm going to go ahead and stop this recording.